simple understanding. So basically the season starts from, I'm glad you brought this before because the season is going to start probably next week. The cashews are just flowering. This year the cashew flowering is a little late, but you basically start from March to May ends. But you basically have cashews, we pick up only fallen fruit. Now the reason why they pick up fallen fruit, cashew is still considered cash crop for the nut. So the nut is fully developed and falls on the ground. But for me, it's an excellent way because the fruit is completely full of sugar. It falls on the ground and it's also less work. You don't have to shake it till it falls down. Nature is bringing food. So you pick up the fruit, you separate the nuts, this is their process. And we get the fruit. So then what we do is we stomp it, just like our wine does. They stomp it, they take out, extract the juice. The juice is collected. In the meantime, the pulp that is remaining. Now traditionally they stamped it. Now we've got pulpers, we've got squeezers which basically squeeze the juice. So that's modern technology coming into our way. And then they keep it in a mound and they truss it with wine. With a wine like a small creek or something, they type it down. And they put a rock on top for gravity. And gravity basically pushes the juice down. Now new way is people have, like you've seen in wine, they have wine presses, the same thing they're using as a cashew press. So they'll improvise materials and go like a truck, jack and stuff, basically make a wine press, a cashew press. And then we keep it in a pot. Now, a lot of people use drums. I personally am against drums because I find drums, one, aesthetically not pleasing. Secondly, where are these drums coming? They are coming from industrial use, so I don't know what chemicals have been used before. So that's why I'm against using drums. So through my research, I found that there were just 2 people in full of Salsit and South Goa, I think, I don't know, North Goa, who are still using earthen pots for fermentation. Now, earthen pots, they bury them in the ground. Because one of the things of fermentation, I think I'm the least qualified here compared to you all. You all will tell me better that you need a stable temperature yeast to grow evenly. So if you keep it up in the air, the daytime temperature, the night temperature changes, and that kind of affects the yeast growth. So these guys, now these are ancestors. We don't call them, we might not look upon them as scientists, but their power of observation and understanding was far greater than what we can learn in the class. So they buried their pots underground, 3/4 underground, maybe sometimes fully underground, and they allowed the juice to actually ferment it. That gave a stable temperature, even growth. And they are about 100-liter pots. They were quite big pots, 100-liter pots. They left it for 3 hours. Now in Goa and in India, our culture is such that we don't go the Western way. In the Western way, where we look at volumes and we look at temperatures and we look at all these things, like the scientific way which we are following on. Traditionally, we looked at time and we looked at volume. So when you ask for a Feni, how much juice, they'll say 3 percent or 1 can. They will not tell you 100 liters or 50 liters. They say 1 pot. Now, how big is a pot? When I first came into the industry, what is a pot? Those are the challenges I faced. And then they say 72 hours, 3 days. Now, what if the temperature was hotter during those days? Your yeast would grow faster. Or was it too cool? It would go slow. So these things nobody knows. So that's why I call winemaking an art, whiskey making a science, because it's actually precise. And I call Feni magic, because nobody knows what is happening. I mean, it's just observation. I just call it magic. Because I also don't know. They say 3 days, and I said, how do you know the sugar content? How do you know? Have you checked the sugar? Is it completely done? Nobody knows. What is alcohol content? And then they distill it once. A distillation, they put the juice inside. And this is just plain fermented juice. After 3 days, you put the juice into a pot. Now again here, there is no temperature gauge to tell you what temperature they do. This is the power of observation where they actually look at the flame. These guys put fuel inside, they put wood, a wood-fired pot, which is again very difficult. You boil it, and the first distillation is done at a higher temperature. In alcohol terms, in distillation terms, they call it a stripping run. They're basically trying to remove all the alcohol from the juice, separate the alcohol from the juice. So this So this is done at a high temperature. You're taking water, and that's why your first distillation of urak, which is the first distillation, basically has about 18 to 20% alcohol. The rest about is about 80%, 82% is all water. Because you're doing at a high temperature, water is coming. But this is fundamental. Water being a complex molecule will be, as it's coming over, it's pulling flavor. It's pulling esters, it's pulling all these aromatic flavor components from the juice into the alcohol, into the urak. That's why when you open a urak, it's got a beautiful fruity smell. It's got a lovely fruit aroma, a little flowery. It's very light. It's very beautiful. I'm sure, I don't know how many girls have tasted urak, but I mean, my wife and my mother, they drink only urak. They don't drink Feni, but they drink urak. A lot of people I know drink only urak to start off with. And then, so this thing goes from it goes into a coil, into a coil. We have been advocating to the industry to, earlier they used to use a small pot. They call it a lavani. And Mr. Bhakta, who was not here, he's been advocating the use of lavani. It gives a very beautiful taste. But industrially it's difficult to manage lavani because the lavani is an earthen pot. Once you boil the liquid, it comes out. I'll show you photographs. So once it comes out from here, it goes into a lavani, actually, a small earthen pot. But the earthen pot has to continuously cool. And if it's cooled continuously, then it condenses and then you collect the alcohol. But industry, we improvise. We can't change tradition too much, but we improvise. We use copper coils. The copper being a good conductor of heat, transmits all the copper, all the heat into the water and cools it. That's one. Second thing is copper. Also, I mean, any fruit product has some sulfur in it. So the sulfur that is coming out from the fruit is from the juice is actually getting coated on top and forming copper sulfate. And you are removing the copper sulfate. And copper sulfate is bad because it causes headaches. I think it's in small amounts it's bad. I mean, bad in big amounts it's worse. So it's basically removing the copper, removing the sulfates. And then after that then we take it for the second distillation. Now, again, culture in South Goa and North Goa is very different. In South Goa, a lot of people have now, they distill the second distillation with water. So they take the urak, and they put water, and they distill. In North Goa, some people are actually taking urak, they're putting juice inside, and distilling. The flavor components again are different. Your distillation that comes out, in South Goa, which in large parts of South Goa, not everywhere, that you use in water, gives a very clean smell. The fruity component is reduced. It gives a very alcoholic clean smell. Whereas in North Goa, where they're still using juice, it gives a slightly more fruity smell. So it depends on what kind of taste you're looking out for. But what is interesting is, okay, so I'll tell you that. So this is called Cazulo. Technically, this was called Cazulo. And then they redistill the same process again to a higher strength called Feni. But what has happened is, culture has it that nobody drinks 50% alcohol anymore. 50-51% is too strong. Everyone is, if you buy a bottle of Old Monk, or you buy a bottle of whiskey or Signature or whatever, it's all 42%, 42.8. And 42.8 is now considered an acceptable alcoholic limit for everyone. And Cazulo, the second distillation, is actually 42.8. It's around 45, 42.8. It's actually 45. So percent alcohol. So what they've done is they've renamed Cazulo as an accepted term to be calling it as Feni. So what people actually think is actually Cazulo, but it's actually called Feni. Because Feni is, I think you're confused. So first is urak, second is Cazulo, third is Feni. But what happens is, Feni is too strong, it's 51%. Nobody drinks 51% alcohol anymore. They're drinking 42. So what they've done is they renamed Cazulo and they call it Feni. Yeah? And then that's the first thing. Second thing is the cost of firewood and time. Who has time to do 3 distillations when you can actually drink it in second distillation? You're drinking second distillation. So if anyone is telling you they're doing 3 distillation, except one person in Goa, he's telling you a lie. There's only one person doing 3 distillation. So that is what Feni. So now they're calling Cazulo as a distillation. So what I do different is, after that I keep it in the garafon or stainless steel. I started with garafon